Hello everyone, we have an important special announcement for you before the video.
Thunder and Lightning will be streaming on Twitch every Sunday at 5 p.m. starting on February 7th, streaming all our ongoing playthroughs.
If you want to follow us beforehand, you can find the link in the description to this video.
But that's not all!
If we reach 50 followers on Twitch before the 7th, we'll hold our first planned speedrun event early.
So be sure to check it out. Now enjoy your video.
Hello everybody and welcome back to part 2 of my video series analyzing all things Teen Titans. I know, I didn't think there'd be a part 2 either. If you want to watch part 1, links to that will be in the description and at the end of the video. It's about my ideal Teen Titans team makeup. Today's video is going to be all about Titans, the DC Universe produced live-action television show which showcases a darker and more gritty take on the Teen Titans. I recently purchased HBO Max and Titans was among one of the first things I watched because I had to know. Is it really as bad as people say it is? Does it have any redeeming qualities? Also, before I go any further, just as a heads up, I'm going to be spoiling most of what happens in the show, including one of the last things that happens in the very last episode of the most recent season. So, you've been warned. So, first of all, let's talk about if I liked it. I did not. Simply put, this show is not good. The theming isn't great, the character development is non-existent, the characters themselves are unlikable, the story isn't interesting, the writing is downright terrible, and not to mention the most important part, this is a terrible adaptation and depiction of Teen Titans and the individual characters as a whole. Let me ask you something. Is it fair to compare something to its predecessor, especially if that predecessor is better? For example, I think the best Friday the 13th movie is Part 6, and I think all others that came after it are somewhere in the spectrum of a little to a lot worse. I think Part 6 is the best that the series has to offer. So when they make a new one, is it fair to say, how is it compared to the best one? Because I think yes. My reasoning being, why make something at all if it's not going to be as good, if not better, than what came before it? With that in mind, I'm going to be comparing Titans to the mid-2000s Cartoon Network TV show, Teen Titans. I don't think I'm alone in saying that that show is the best the Teen Titans has to offer. And to be completely honest, I think Titans wanted me to compare it to Teen Titans. It takes so many beats from that show and then proceeds to f*** them up so efficiently that it almost feels like someone is trolling me at some point. This isn't the only piece of Teen Titans media to do this in the last 2 decades, but this show takes story beats and plot elements from Teen Titans, probably trying to capitalize on its success or siphon on the audience's sense of nostalgia, but whatever it is, I don't like it. That show was successful, now do your own thing. You don't have to pretend it didn't exist, but also don't be so derivative that I can tell exactly when and how you want me to be reminded of Teen Titans. This is one of my biggest and most consistent issues with the show. The story is fine. I'm okay with how they're telling the story and how they choose to frame reveals and how they get from plot point A to plot point T, but the line-to-line dialogue is where the show really starts to lose me. This show has some of the worst interstitial dialogue I've ever been exposed to. Everything Robin says is a nightmare. While speaking on that, do you remember when the trailer for this show dropped and Robin practically looked directly at the camera and said, "Fuck Batman"? And we were all just like, wait, why did you say that? Why did you say fuck just now? That was weird. We can all agree that was weird, right? Why did you say that? Every time they say fuck in this show, it feels exactly like that. It feels like a kid who knows it's cool to say fuck around this one aunt, so they say it way too much while she's babysitting because they think they can, and she's just like, okay kid, I know what I said, but like, come on. If you're not familiar with this term, it's pretty self-explanatory. Why tell a story in so many words when you can tell the story with visuals? Music videos implement this a lot when the video is trying to tell a different story from the lyrics. Film and television directors use this as a way to add depth to scenes in a subtle way. Emphasis on subtle. Titans visual storytelling looks a little like this. Did you see that? Did you see what we did there? Look, we put the word star next to the word fire. Did you see all the ravens in the last scene? Look at the ravens! Needless to say, a far cry from subtle. Similar to most pieces of Teen Titans media, the main character of this show is Dick Grayson, otherwise known as Robin. And let me tell you, This version of Robin is the most unlikable, unrelatable main character I've ever encountered. I think the reason so many pieces of Teen Titans media focus on him as the main character is because he has no superpowers, just like us, the audience. So he's easier to sympathize with than, say, Cyborg or Starfire. It's easier to put ourselves in his shoes. But this Robin is different. The way he acts, the way he talks, the actions he takes really makes you not care about him as a character. He has very few redeeming qualities, and he quickly becomes nothing more than a device to drive the show from one scene to the next, and nothing more. This Robin isn't a hero, he's an asshole. At least he has Batman on speed dial. Some of you are probably wondering after that last video what I think of the team makeup, and it's fine. I don't have many issues with it. Hawk and Dove are a welcome inclusion. Cyborg being absent is a little odd, but at least we get him in Doom Patrol. Interestingly enough, this show has two Robins, the second one being an extremely young, still breathing Jason Todd. I love Starfire being black. I think focusing most of Season 1's story on Raven is a big problem, but we'll get to that later. Beast Boy sucks. By the end of Season 2, he can still only turn into a tiger and one time only a snake. Connor is cool, but too much of Season 2 is about him. And finally, we get to my favorite character, Donna Troy, aka Wonder Girl. She's a great character and is also pretty underutilized in general, in my opinion, but I digress. So I was trying to decide where to take this video next, and I think the best way to further explain what I dislike about this show is to go over an entire episode. Not the worst episode, but a prime example of just how bad this show can truly get. So the episode starts out with the words 5 years ago, so right off the bat, it's a flashback episode. I sure hope that means that neither Robin, Donna, Hank, Dawn, Dr. Light, nor Deathstroke get into any perilous situations, because I'm pretty sure they'll survive it. We're then treated to some Deathstroke murder porn, and the worst, most obvious CGI sword I've ever seen before he gets a new assignment that we're led to believe is the Teen Titans. Sorry, my apologies. The Titans. He's after the Titans. They're not teenagers. Title sequence. If I may mention here, the leitmotif used in Titans is identical to the one used in CW's The Flash, just with one less note. Take a listen. We are then reintroduced to Robin, Dick, Hawk, Hank, Dove, Dawn, Wonder Girl, Donna, and Aqualad, Garth. A confusing name, because Beast Boy goes by Gar in this show for some reason. They're stopping a crime and generally kicking ass. At this point in the episode, I can only assume that because the episode is named Aqualad, it's going to revolve around him, and also he's probably going to die since he's not in the rest of the show. The next scene is a birthday party scene, and the party is for Garth, but Donna isn't in attendance. Yeah, it turns out the episode is actually going to focus on her, which I don't mind at all. As I mentioned before, she's my favorite character. She's in her room reading a biography on Frida Kahlo, a Mexican artist known for her mix of realism and fantasy, often with autobiographical undertones. I can only assume that Donna is reading a book about a painter because Diana works in a museum. It seems all DC Universe Amazons have a fascination with art and art preservation. We meet another character later on who's also an Amazon who works for an art gallery. Her reading is interrupted by Dawn, the only other female in the group, who immediately criticizes her for not wanting to join the party and chastises her for not wanting to go out with Garth, a concept not even the audience has been introduced to yet. They had a weird little back and forth earlier in the episode, but I just took that as Donna being awkward because Atlanteans are usually more confident than Amazons when it comes to blending in with modern day society anyways. She mentions the reason she's not interested is that he's too headstrong, literally what I just mentioned. Dove responds with, "Opposites attract," which is as if she said, "That's stupid, you're stupid, date the Atlantean." Dove continues to try to convince her to join the party, with Donna giving any and all excuse not to, before Dawn literally drags her off her bed and forces her to join the festivities. Dr. Light has a cliche-filled chat with a nerdy doctor character before pushing him to death. The team does a group photo that Dawn is weirdly okay not being in, during which Garth gets a little too touchy with Donna. Power outage. Excuse to mention Batman again, excuse to get Donna and Garth alone so he can be a general creep, excuse for her to exit the scene. Dawn and Dick have a romantic back and forth. Skip! Donna gathers candles, something Dawn said she'd do. Garth takes this as an opportunity to ask Donna out multiple times, with her laying it on pretty hard that she isn't having any of it. It's not even like a little flirty. She's clearly incredibly uncomfortable by how forward he's being. He insults her homeland, and she informs him that she's not staying off island forever. She leaves for Themyscira in 6 months, and he essentially hints that she has 2 options: go back there for her or stay here for him. I honestly think this character came off way more toxic masculinity than they intended him to. Also, as soon as Donna puts out the last candle, the power comes back and she immediately starts collecting them and blowing them out. I just thought that was funny. She then sends a text to someone I assumed to be Wonder Woman saying, "I need to see you." Dr. Light robs a bank. Donna meets with her Themysciran contact Lillian, the one I briefly mentioned before. Excuse to mention Wonder Woman. She asks if she can leave early. Lillian also tells Donna that she should go out with Garth, then tells her that there's an early flight back home in 2 weeks that she's welcome to board. The Titans show up late and uncostumed to the bank robbery, where Robin tells Donna and Garth to comb through security footage together because of course he does. Donna of course does this all by herself while Garth does who knows what. Then Garth brings out this orange soda-like substance and Donna's mood instantly shifts. Apparently it's a drink she really enjoyed as a kid and hasn't had since then. They then begin to reminisce about the time they spent together as children. Donna grew up off Themyscira. This is explained in a prior episode. No explanation as to why Aqualad was in the picture, seeing how Diana didn't meet Aquaman until 2017. Unless these canons aren't related, but I was pretty sure they were. Anyways, he basically reminds her of this amazingly kind gesture he made when they were kids, and Donna's mood changes once again from standoffish to excitable to practically offended by how into this guy she is all of a sudden. I sympathize with this for once. The scene is interrupted by Dawn, thank Christ. The team regroups to discuss the mission. Donna returns unmotivated to her book before looking at the Dawn List group photo that she ended up with for some reason. Garth then asks Robin, of all people, for advice on Donna. Garth quotes Cyrano de Bergerac, a play he definitely has not seen. Excuse to mention Batman. Robin basically tells Garth to wait and Donna will come to him, and he's right? Yeah, so the rest of the episode plays out like this. Donna tells Robin she's leaving 2 weeks early, but lies and tell him that Jillian's making her leave, and that she's leaving tonight, which is confusing. I guess this episode took place over the course of 2 weeks. The Titans finish up the Dr. Light B-plot, in which Aqualad takes an elongated direct hit from Dr. Light while Robin and Donna just sort of stand there. Back at Titan Tower, Donna runs into Garth before she leaves and without words starts making out with him. The scene cuts away, so I assume they had sex, but who knows, maybe they just made out in their underwear. Donna leaves for the airport without saying goodbye to anyone, including Garth, or telling him why she slept with him. Garth runs into Dick, who tells him where Donna is headed after he realizes what just happened between them. Donna heads to the airport, and Garth catches up to her. Garth is rightfully pissed off. Donna tries to shift the blame onto him and his morals. Garth gives her that ultimatum from earlier that she can leave and become a true Amazon, or stay and be with him. Garth tells Donna he's in love with her, which is incredibly unlikely. Garth tries to leave, Donna stops him, they hug, and Garth is shot by Deathstroke, killing him instantly. Donna decides to stay in San Francisco, apparently for another 5+ years. Donna blames herself for Garth's death, and the rest of the episode doesn't matter. I think Robin eats an innocent kid or something. Also, excuse to mention Batman. So yeah, after all that, Donna was in fact into Garth, and not only that, but it's her that takes advantage of him and not the other way around like the episode would have led you to believe. I really feel like this episode goes against Donna's entire personality and how an Amazon would handle this situation, but hey, what do I know? Maybe I'm wrong and Donna's actually a scumbag. The show's not really about her usually, so I guess what feels like a left field swing could just be common practice for this version of this character. Needless to say, Titans could have been so much better. The 3rd season is on its way, but I doubt it'll be any better than the last 2. The 2nd season ended pretty badly. Beast Boy is still only a tiger, Superboy is still on the team, which means all problems will either be solved by him easily or should be. Robin now goes by Nightwing for no reason other than clickbait. Hawk and Dove split up, which probably means Robin and Dove are going to try to be a thing again. Deathstroke's dead, which means he can't come back. His son is part of the team, but he's like trapped in his sister's mind. And Raven is on her way to Themyscira with Donna's corpse. Oh yeah, did I mention? Wonder Girl f***ing dies Yeah, so if you had to guess all the different ways an Amazon could be killed, would electrocution be high on the list? I'm not going to pretend that I'm a font of knowledge on Amazons, but earlier in the episode, Donna, a character who has the same powers and abilities as Wonder Woman, took multiple punches to the face from Superboy, a character who has all the same powers and abilities as Superman. And she just dies immediately from electricity. Not to mention it's Connor's fault. She's catching a thing he destroyed earlier in the episode, and she used super speed to get there fast, and he could have easily just as done that and not died, and now her corpse is on a one-way ticket to Themyscira, accompanied by Raven, a character that has a demon in her brain. Speaking of, and I mentioned this last video, so forgive me, but why is the Season 1 villain Trigon? I mean, I know the answer, it's because he was in Teen Titans, but seriously, yet another bit of Teen Titans media that jumps right to Trigon. There are so many other long-tenured Teen Titan villains. You don't always... You know what? Fuck it. Tune into part 3, which will be all about